Welcome to another real estate strategy session where we are taking on the topic of how not to sound pushy this week. So a couple of weeks ago, I polled my Facebook group about what they wanted help with. And the number one answer by far was conversational prospecting. You know, how do you meet someone? How do you evaluate whether they could be a client or be someone that's on your list or be someone who refers you? So in addition to this strategy session, we're going to have a whole series of stuff going on, and including a bunch of Facebook Lives are going to be happening and a bunch of conversations within our Facebook group. So if you have not joined our Facebook group, you can do it by clicking below, or you can go to Facebook and go to The Strategic Agent. Now, let's talk about the number one question I get asked as a trainer, and that would be, how do I ask for referrals without sounding pushy? That's a big question. So years ago, let me give you an example. Years ago, I was approached by a new agent who, by the way, was a former teacher. And she and I had previously disagreed about talking to your sphere of influence. I wanted her to learn the model about how to talk to people, and she just flatly declined. She just said, I'm just not going to do that. In other words, she opted in to be a secret agent. So one day she called me and she said, I want to tell you a story. She was sitting in a restaurant with her husband where a childhood friend approached her. And as they chatted, he told her he was A, getting married, B, had a new job, and C, planning to move into a new house that year. Now, because she was not at all prepared, because she had not learned her words, she had not learned script, she said she sat there during the whole time thinking, what should I say? And she said, because I was thinking the whole time, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? She said, I completely missed the conversation, and I'm sure he felt like I was a moron. So her message to me was, all right, I'm ready to learn. Teach me how to ask people for business. Now, that's the model that we're going to be discussing here. It's called the Rda Model. That stands for rapport, discovery questions, and lastly, action. Now, you may or may not realize this, but all conversations have a structure. They all start with some kind of initial, what I call ease in words that you might call rapport building. You know, hey, how are you? It's a really nice day today. Gee, you look good. You know, chit chat. That is how the first section of this model goes. It is just warming up the conversation. But pretty soon, the conversation starts transitioning, and it transitions into open-ended questions. If you've run up on a friend, you may be saying something like, so tell me what's been going on. Tell me how you've been. You know, these are those kind of questions that you would ask someone you haven't seen in a long time. Now, as a real estate professional, your questions may go toward housing. They may be things like, so tell me where you're living now and how do you like where you're living? You know, those are questions that I think naturally come from a real estate agent. And very often, if I don't know someone and I'm asking that kind of question about where they live, you know, that could be a little, So I always throw in the sentence, you know, I'm a real estate agent, and that means I'm incredibly nosy about where people live. Everybody chuckles, and it lightens that mood that I've just asked them something fairly personal. Here's the point. The point is that you need to be naturally curious about the person that you're talking to and about what's going on in their life. Now, during that conversation, if you hear something that you can provide a solution to, then you should recommend an action. If they say, oh, gee, we've been having some problems with the house. Okay, what do you need? Do you need a plumber? Or if they have a question about a house that has sold in the neighborhood. Okay, great. I can give you that information. If there's not an opportunity to help them with something, then you can just remind them at the end of the conversation that you are a real estate agent and you like referrals. Different people have different ways of saying it. My closing line has always been, if you know anybody who needs a caring and competent real estate agent, will you please let me know? That was just the sentence that tasted good to me, that I found was very easy to say. You have to find yours. Now, and by the way, we're going to be talking about some of those things in the Facebook group. So then I go back and I write them a note reminding them about my services, and I put several cards in an envelope, okay? So that's how that may go. Let me give you a different type of example. One day I was standing in a Walmart, and clearly Walmart did not get the memo that it was a teacher's work day and all the children had come to Walmart for teacher's work day because the lines were obnoxiously long. And as I was standing there, I looked around, there was a woman standing behind me, and she and I started having this interchange about how crazy this was. That we were probably 20 minutes to 25 minutes to getting to the cashier. That's how bad it was. So she and I chatted, we agreed, we commiserated for a few seconds. And then I said to her, you know what? You don't sound like you're from the South. Where are you from? And she answered, well, we have moved here from Ohio. Well, what brought you here? She answered, my husband's work. Do you like it so far? Well, she said, it's a little different, but we really are starting to get used to it. And yes, I really do. So which area do you live in? I asked her, and then I put my sentence in. Hey, I'm a nosy real estate agent, and so I always ask where people live. And her response was, well, we're living in Quail Hollow. Great. Are you renting or did you buy a house? Now, her answer to me was, no, we're planning on buying, but we wanted to stay here for a little while and get to know the area before we made that decision. And I said to her, you know, that is a really good decision. So are you planning on staying in North Raleigh? And she said, yes. As a matter of fact, I believe we are. We've gotten quite comfortable with this area. In other words, this was just a change. This was just an interchange, a conversation. But then I upped the ante a little bit when I said, if the world was perfect, when would I be handing you the keys to your new house? Her answer was, in about 5 months. All right, there it was. She had a clear need. So I saw that she had a clear need. Now it was my turn to make an offer to go to the third step of the model. I said to her, you know, I specialize in North Raleigh, and because we have such an active market, I've really found that one of the smartest things that a home buyer can do is get to know the market way before it's time to start actively looking. So let me tell you how I do this. I like to sit down and meet people and fill out a home buyer game plan. What it does is it establishes the goal, and then it establishes the steps on how to reach that goal. Now, I do this as a free service, and I do it in hopes that you will use me when it's time. Is that something you would like to do? And she said, actually, I would love to do that. We're starting to think about it. We set a time, we exchanged the information, boom, new buyer. And it was a new buyer because I understood what to say, and I gave her an action. I asked, I discovered, I gave her an action. Now you may say, okay, that was kind of easy. What if she didn't have a need? Well, if she hadn't had a need, if she had said, yes, we bought a house and I'm being buried in the backyard, then probably what I would have said to her is, you know, I have found that when people move into the area, a whole bunch of their family starts moving in. And I would love to be able to be a resource for your family for information about moving here. Also, I have lots of great information about the community now that you're here as a community member that I send out every month. Is that something that you would like the information on? So that's the way I would go about it if there clearly was no need. It really is simple. It is listen to people, ask big questions, be curious, and provide solutions. All right, now let's switch gears for a second and talk about how you might sound pushy. Well, this is how people sound pushy, because in those former examples, I didn't sound pushy. I asked questions, I listened, I provided an action. So this is how people sound pushy. It's simple. They violate the model. Instead of building rapport, asking discovery questions, and going for an action, they go straight in for what I can only call the kill is what they do. So the conversation may sound something like this. Oh, hey, yeah, it's really long in here. By the way, hey, I'm Joe with blah, blah, blah. Do you know anybody who needs to buy or sell a house? I'd love for you to take my card. That is a pushy position. And the reason that happened, the reason that felt that way is because all of the interaction was about me. It wasn't about them. When it's all about you and not about them, that's when it sounds pushy. So here's the key. The key to not sounding pushy is about turning that from you to them. All right, so what action should you take? Well, the action you should take is learn how to ask questions. Have a set of questions that you just normally ask in a conversation, a pocket full of really good questions. And when you hear a need or solution, then you make an offer. Remember, it's not about selling. It's about understanding who they are and what they need. But to help you implement this concept, I have an offer for you. Several years ago, I wrote a book named, you guessed it, Pushy. And there is a chapter in that book where we discuss this Rda model in detail, a lot more detail than we can do here in a strategy session. So I have that chapter free to you by clicking below. All right? Go and get that chapter. And also remember, we're going to be talking about conversational prospecting every week and for a couple of weeks, every day for a couple of weeks rather, and we would love to have you in our Facebook group. So please go out there and join it. You can click here, you can go to Facebook, and you can put in the strategic agent. All right, come on over and join the conversation.